what might be on that first quiz, for those of you who take the quiz, is part of what I'm going to cover. And what do we make of Gates's really important article, The Trope of the Talking Book? That's what I'll try to cover in this one. So first of all, if you decide you're taking the quiz this week, expect some questions about religion as orientation and know what Long and Albanese have to say. If you're on the discussion thread, why don't you contribute in there what Long and Albanese have to say, because this could help you in your final research paper. Expect to find some questions about the facts and context of the interesting narrative. And that means, when was it published? Our editor of the Norton Critical Edition, Sollers, gives you the historical context. It's his job to introduce this remarkable work to you. So take care of those details and know that historical context. That includes the slave trade and the context of the significance that our editor tells us this book carries. So why is this a landmark text? Expect some questions about the plot line of the chapters that we have read. A fascinating story with so much travel in it. It is hard to remember, did he go to Barbados? Was he in England? That's a lot of moving. And when you think about the conditions in which this man moved, it is remarkable that he survived. So make a plot line for yourself so that you understand, where did he start from? Where did he go? Where was he bought? Where was he sold? And expect some questions about Gates's article. And for some reason, it looks to me like I have said Gates's tomatoes article. And I don't know what the tomato had to do with anything. So the point is Gates's article. Now, we've got the Norton Critical Edition because this is the best way for any reader. If you love a text, go see if it has the Norton Critical Edition, because it means they brought the best minds around to think about the text, and they've collected the most important ideas and thoughts produced by people working with the text. What do we make of the trope of the talking book? We know it is so important that even Sollers mentions it in his introduction to the text. So in terms of signaling to a reader how important is this text, he wants to, Sollers brings in this chapter on the readings on page 48 about where Equiano is describing this. So let me just read briefly here. After he has discovered snow, seen snow for the first time, and he is told that God makes the snow, after that he goes into a church where he understands that what they are doing is praising the God who made the snow. And then we move into this little paragraph. I had often seen my master and Dick employed in reading, and I had a great curiosity to talk to the books, as I thought they did, and so to learn how all things had a beginning. For that purpose I have often taken up a book and have talked to it, and then put my ears to it when alone. In hopes it would answer me. And I have been very much concerned when I found it remained silent. Now, as you read along in Equiano's interesting narrative, it would be fairly simple to think that one was getting a bird's eye view of a simple mind. The mind that didn't know what snow was, the mind that didn't know what God was, the mind that didn't know how books worked, the mind that was curious and naive. But once you get to Gates, you realize that what Equiano has managed to do on a page like 48 is really quite complex and important. He has done, Gates tells us, two things throughout the narrative. He moves us in time so that we get the first person record of this is how it felt to see the snow. But then we also hear a narrative voice that moves us into the world of the mature person who now understands where that the whole world of snow. And so throughout the narrative, Equiano uses tense, time tense, to both give us that bird's eye view. You feel like you were the child in wonder at the horror of the slave ship, in wonder at the beauty of the snow. The child in wonder at the power of the book. And yet you then get moved back through a change in tense to realize that the narrator's voice is now looking back upon that time with the reflection of an adult. So that Equiano has crafted an interesting narrative that purposefully moves us with two narrative voices at work. The second thing Gates tells us that he is doing is that the trope of the talking book is not only found, this is not the only place you'll ever see that discussion of somebody going to listen and talking to it like, come on, give me the goods on this. So that we learn that though it is very likely that the young Equiano was in fact amazed by books, and that in fact he had an experience of trying to understand what is the power of these things, we also realize that the mature narrator, Equiano, has read widely in the worlds of literature, poetry, he knows tragedy, he knows philosophy, and that he is using this trope of the talking book to actually explore what it means to move as a human through an identification of material objects as actually having subjectivity, that the book would talk back to me, he's thinking, right? That's a world where Equiano is the object, the ignorant one, and the book is the subject that would talk to him. But because he is the one writing the story, we know he has now mastered the words. He is now the subject, the writer, the author, the narrator. So that when he writes you the story about how he was ignorant and thought the book was doing the talking, he is actually crafting this second narrative position whereby his writing of that event demonstrates his full subjectivity. And now the words are something he is using. The same thing happens when you read about the clock, that he watches the clock telling people what to do, when to do it. And in narrating this, we as readers might think, oh, well, that's kind of a curious way to look at it. And maybe we would slow down to reflect and think, I guess clocks actually tell me what to do quite a bit of the time, so that we might find this a curious insight. But what Gates helps us understand is that when Equiano writes to you through the eye of the child that found the clock to be the subject who's telling everybody where to go, through his use of the words, through his mastery of this trope, he is writing his full subjectivity as a genius author into the reading experience. the excitement and the surprise that students over time have expressed with regard to the way Gates's article both befuddled but then opened up an entire new realm of appreciation for this story that they might have walked through as an interesting, curious story, and then begin to understand and appreciate the philosophical endeavor of writing himself into full subjectivity in the reader's mind. That's a pretty cool thing to do. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks.